Instagram. I'm waiting for it. Love it.
There it is.
Goodness.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emotional Entrepreneur Show with Summer and
Jen.
I got my name right. I was like, over there.
I know. I'm looking on Instagram. Yeah, you're pointing to right. If you're pointing to your left, it's right.
Now you confused me. Now I'm like just confused. Okay, there.
I remember so many videos where like I'm pointing like the wrong way. I'm pointing to the edge of the screen and not her.
Okay, that was easy. So if I go this way, then it's like, well, so hello, everybody. We are so happy to be here. And we are going to be talking about today coping and creating along with how to embrace the joyful side of entrepreneurship. We are so excited to talk about this. But before we get into this, I need to pull up my LinkedIn. So go ahead and chat about this, Jen, because I need to make sure that we are on there.
Yeah, the joyful side.
Yes.
When I was thinking about this title, I was thinking about like, you know, there's oftentimes there's subjects where we're talking about the struggle, how it's hard, and, you know, how do you overcome difficult times in entrepreneurship. So I think it's great that we're also going to highlight the joyful stuff. Like it's nice to talk about the fun, nice stuff. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I'm excited to hear, you know, everybody who's on, let us know your thoughts. You know, what are some of the benefits that you are experiencing as an entrepreneur, or even somebody who's trying to get into entrepreneurship? What is it about that brings joy to you? Because there's obviously a reason why some of you are willing to leave maybe a job that, you know, for whatever reason, maybe you hate it, or maybe you're looking for a second career, or maybe you're ready for a transition. But there's obviously something alluring about entrepreneurship that's, you know, causing or making or inviting you to join the other side.
Absolutely. You know, there's so much joy in entrepreneurship. And I just got done talking with one of my core women podcast guests. And, you know, she's actually a guest on today. And she said, you know, for years, she made entrepreneurship really hard. And it was exhausting. She was, you know, her focus was to be driven. And it's so funny because I actually have this light up sign over here and it says rise and grind, like just grind, right? And so she's like, that was like her mentality constantly. So it wasn't as enjoyable as it could have been or could be, right? So one day she stopped and had that point of reflection and said, why am I making this so hard? And I think a lot of times it's a mind shift. It's the words and phrases we use, because even though I have that, I mean, it literally is a sign that lights up in white and blue up here on my wall. And it's like rise and grind. And to me, it's cute. And it's like, okay, that's what I'm all about. Rise and grind, right?
It's a cute play on words because it's usually the rise and shine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I have that on my wall. It was like a $5 sign and it just glows and I see it. And I was like, oh, I like that, you know, but that adds to my happiness. That adds to, and I'm going to distinguish something, because we do say how to embrace the joyful side of entrepreneurship. Now, when I think of joy versus happiness, happiness is a lot of times what we find on the exterior, what we're looking for, what we're trying to grab or latch onto. And that's not necessarily long lasting, but joy is something we cultivate from within. Joy is something that we nurture, that we have organically, intrinsically. That's something I feel is very different than happiness. Because when you're running and you're trying to stay up and keep up and all that good stuff, or maybe not so good stuff, sometimes you lose your balance. Sometimes you lose your stride. Sometimes you lose that energy. And so that's kind of what we're talking about today, is that differentiator, that joy. What are you creating inside of you? What can you hold on to? And I say this because a lot of times when we cultivate that joy inside, it helps us maintain and stay aligned with our purpose and our passion, which creates sustainability. And to me, that's so important. And by the way, for those of you out there, Adrian, Bibiana, those of you on LinkedIn, those of you on YouTube, the best part of the show, Jen and I talk about it all the time, is your participation, you being here, your input. We love hearing your tips, your ideas, what you do to cultivate that joy, and so much more. And that's what makes this show so awesome. So invite your friends. If they're out there, they need to hear some of this, because seriously, entrepreneurship is difficult. And it can be that you're creating lack of structure for yourself, lack of organization, lack of a schedule. Like, these things can minimize that joy.
Yeah, you said a lot of lack. Yeah, when there's a lot of lack, that is going to cause, unhappiness, or I was going to say unjoyfulness.
Right? And unbalanced. And I think that we can have so much more. And I think it starts here and here in your heart and mind. And when I think heart, mind, and soul and spirit, right? And I think when you're there and that's all lining up, then you soar, right? So it's like, when I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a bird, right? So it's just like you can fly, and the trajectory looks a lot different. Jen?
Right. Yeah, Dre said, "Hey, Dre, what's up?" He's on the East Coast, experiencing that wonderful humidity. I always believe in both sides. We have to go through all facets of emotions, go through the tough times to really appreciate the joy. And Bibiana said 100%. And that's so true, right? It's like, it's the law of polarity. For everything on one side, there's the opposite. And it's so true. If we don't go through those hard times, we can't really truly appreciate when things are good, when things are we're in a happy state, a joyful state. Very, very, very true. And I love that you guys are talking about these facets of emotions, because when we are going through a tough time and we are experiencing difficult emotions, for me personally, I will think about we always come out of it. Some periods are longer than others. Some take a little, bit more to get through, depending on how heavy the situation is and what you're going through. And a lot of times it's also circumstances beyond your control, right? Sometimes it's just a waiting period of, I got to just get through this. But there is always that hope that we're eventually going to get past that. And that's what I focus on. I focus on, like, okay, we hear phrases like this too shall pass. Just hopefully faster than a painful kidney stone. But it's like, you're going to get through it, right? And I think about, like, yeah, this isn't going to last forever. Yeah. And I think about how when I am going through it, it's going to help me understand when I am experiencing, like, the other side, right? When we are in that moment where, like, man, things are going great now, I will always appreciate that difficult time, because it helps me. It toughens us. It helps us learn new things, especially about ourselves, we learn so many lessons, especially if you're taking the time to reflect and gain awareness of what is the situation teaching me, especially if it's something that you're dealing with another person, another, a friend, a partner, somebody you're in a relationship with, whatever the case is. Those are the things and those experiences that teach you a lot about yourself. But it also takes time to, hold yourself accountable. If you're wrong, own it, learn about it, and then see, like, and the phrase that I often will say to myself is like, okay, what kind of wisdom can I gain from this? What is it that I can learn about myself so that I'm not taking this into the next situation or into the next, circumstance or situation that I'm in, that I can make better decisions.
Yeah, I love that, Jen. I want to go back to something that Dre said. And Dre said, I always believe in both sides. We have to go through all the facets of emotions. Keyword, emotions. Emotions, 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 emotions. The reason we named this show The Emotional Entrepreneur, because I want people to know that emotions aren't bad. When we talk about emotions, there's a differentiator here, emotions and being emotional, right? And being able to identify our emotions, to name those emotions, identify them, embrace them, understand them, helps us better calibrate those emotions, right? And so I love that you mentioned that, Dre. So it's so important to first recognize how you're feeling. I also think, Jen, what you said in relation to what we go through, our steps, the challenges, builds that strength, builds that character, builds that inner wisdom and inner knowing, right? And it's so important, because if we didn't go through those and we didn't reflect, how would we know how to get back up?
Right.
Right. And I think getting back up is so important, or even being able to tread water for a little while until everything kind of settles out again. Right. Yesterday, I want to give you an example of what happened to me. So this has been a very challenging and interesting 6, 7, 8 months for me. And the steps along my journey, we all have difficulties. We all have setbacks. We all have interesting things that have happened. But I was in the doctor's office. I was in the podiatry office yesterday. And she said, hey, come up here and look at your foot, because we need to look at the break in the cubit bone, right? And I was like, okay. So I'm looking at that. And as we were doing that, she goes, you can take a picture of your foot and what you see here. And I thought to myself, I have broken steps right now. Like, some of my steps are kind of broken right now. And yet that isn't reflecting exactly how I'm feeling, because I'm still feeling good. I'm still feeling hopeful. But the steps may feel a little different. It may be a little slower. But the universe was also telling me, hey, Summer, stop, reflect, hold on. There might be some things you need to think about to slow down a little bit. Because not only did I break my foot, but I had cancer. And it was like, hold on, something's trying to tell me something in a big way, right? But that doesn't mean that my life crumbles. That means that I recognize what's going on and I plan and plot my steps a different way. Because that means wearing a boot, and I might be a little lopsided right now, but that's okay. That's okay, because all those other experiences that I've had in the past that helped me get back up, that helped me continue to move forward, and there have been a lot, that helped me to deal with the cancer, to handle the broken foot, all at the same time, right? So, and to run a business and to look at a big move. Like, there's a lot of so if you know a little bit about my background, I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. So when I look at the stress checklist, there's a lot of high stressors there. But how I cope and handle those stressors makes the big difference. So, but all of those things, as Dre said, is you learn. As you said, Jen, those build resiliency. Those build strength. Those build insight and wisdom. So.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned the stressors. Because I think sometimes, like, people don't stop to think about that. You're feeling it, you're going through it, you feel it, but do you ever stop to ask yourself why some of that's there? Some of it you don't have control over, but a lot of it I think also is within your power to eliminate it. And I think sometimes we hang on to situations, people, circumstances longer than we need to. And those keep adding to the stress, which thus affects you experience joy. And you experience happiness on a short-term level, but even to go deeper, you're affecting your long-term joy. As I had this meeting with this lady last week, and I was just telling her, like, yeah, I don't have any stress. And she looked at me weird. She was just like, what? I said, yeah. I said, you know what? I just choose to not deal with drama. I said, I have put in my time. I have had my share. I was like, I just don't engage in it. Whether that's eliminating certain, situations, people, whatever the case, staying away from things that would add to that stressor, or stressful situations. Like I just don't want it anymore. And it has changed so much in my life, because I now can attract other things that do bring joy. So going along with this whole theme that we're talking about is like, yeah, it's like, give me more of that. I can embrace that, because I have gone, especially in the more recent years, I have gone through, Summer knows the whole deleted scenes background director's cut version.
Ah,
Oh God.
what?
Like, my goodness, I have put in my time. And I'm like, so
Yeah.
now I just laugh, because I'm like, I had to intentionally choose to not, be in those situations anymore, or not, or even like with certain projects. There's times when I'm just like, there was one yesterday. Somebody hit me up. They told me the scope of the work. And even when I said no, the lady was like, are you sure we're going to give this to you and this to you? And it was like editing video, and I had to make content, and it was all this stuff. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's kind of easy money. But then I thought about, like, do I really enjoy what was in part of the creative brief that they were requiring me to do? And I just simply said, and I told myself, I'm like, you don't want to do this. You do not want to do this. And there are many times I will turn down the money, because I know that when I have put myself in a situation where I'm like, I'm hating the project. I'm totally hating the project, and I don't even care about the money at that point. And I'm like, why did I say yes to this? Why did I say yes to this? Right?
We've been down that road.
Who was that?
I said, we've been down that road.
Oh, yeah, we've been down that road, right? And so this happens often to me with especially design creative projects. They'll come my way, and I would just be like, ooh, look at the money. But then I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. And many times I will even just, as a pricing tip, I will even pad the proposal. I'm like, what's the word? Like the proposal, because I'm thinking like, okay, it's going to take me this long. Okay, if they paid me X, I'll do it. But do I love it? No. And there've been times when they said no, and I was okay with it. I was totally okay with it. Again, talking about joy, the other thing that helps me is that I stay detached. I win some, I lose some. I'm good either way. I don't get caught up in, I didn't get it, all that stuff. It's just like, okay, cool. It wasn't meant for me, but somebody else will get blessed with the project. And it may be their jam, and they will do an awesome job, and yay, go forth, and that's how I look at it. And so I don't have cringy energy around projects that I have, because I'm choosing the ones I want to take. And then I say no to the ones I would not enjoy. And so those are just little things that I do. So that's like, I'm constantly enjoying the things that I do work on, because I was intentional from the beginning of discerning what was going to be a yes and what was going to be a no. So, trust me, in the beginning, I was like taking everything, especially when, I was in a position where like I had to take everything. So,
Yeah.
And it's, I get that too. The last thing I'll say is, like, I have a client who's in a situation where she's just like, I don't want to do this, Jen. And I'm like, you don't have any work. You don't have a job. I'm sorry to tell you, but you can't be picky right now. Like, you
Yeah.
just need to survive. So I will add that there are going to be these seasons where you can't just be selective. You're just, if you're not in that space, I mean, I'm not saying, blow everything off. You just only pick the things that are going to make you feel good. No, there are going to be times when I had to take the shit projects. I just had to. We have to, because, we have to either pay bills, you obviously want to eat, you got kids to feed, whatever the case. So there are going to be times when you're going to have to, do that, but it's a season. However, even in those seasons of like, it sucks and this is tough, how do you still find those moments of joy? How do you still find like those moments where you have quiet time to yourself, you still spend time with loved ones, you do something fun for yourself? Like, it's so important to do that. Otherwise, you'll just get caught up in the situation and the yuckiness at that moment, and then it's not going to be healthy, especially mentally and emotionally. So important to find those little ways to infuse joy throughout your day, especially when you're going through a tough time.
I love all that, Jen. Thank you so much for
You're
sharing,
welcome.
the examples, your own personal examples, those of others, because you're absolutely right. Not every day is a day that you envisioned, right? But it doesn't mean that you lack hope or you lack focus or you lack intention. Some days are going to be a little bit more difficult, understandable. Embrace that difficulty, but also pull from that joy from within and get real, folks. Like, I want you to get really real. I want you to dig down, and I want you to like say, where am I finding joy today? Like, how am I cultivating this? What is one thing today that I can be joyful about? Because sometimes that's what it is. I have a friend who has cancer, leukemia. She spent 35, 38 days straight in the hospital, but
Wow.
she's still finding joy because people are sending her these beautiful like pop-up plants that are made of paper.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she strewn those across her windowsill. And so she just looks at them every day. She brings in her quilts that she made, and she puts a different one on every other day. And the nurses and people are coming in, they're going, this is the most joyful room we've ever seen. So let me tell you, you can have the worst of days and still find something in it to cultivate hope and joy and happiness, right? So when I say dig deep, or point out or think about one thing that can help you cultivate that joy. I want to go back to some of the remarks here because I think they're really great and I don't want to overlook them. Jessie says, remember your why, which can help you get through the tough days. Absolutely. That is your purpose. That is your passion. That is your impact that you have. So I like to call that your PPI, your why, your purpose, passion, impact. Jessie also says the steps may be uncomfortable right now, but the healing process is still taking place. Even when you can't see how it's going to come together, we can know that it is coming together. It's just like cells, right? It's like they do form, they do function, and they make something beautiful. And the better that we feed ourselves emotionally, physically, guess what? Those cells do things that are wonderful in your body. I was telling my husband, yes, the other day we were getting into a little bit an inside story, a little bit of a spat. And I said, listen, I'm not getting into this with you right now. I'm removing myself because that causes cancer. And I said, that arguing, I'm not having it.
Right.
See ya. Not doing it. I'm not doing it. And he's like, looking at me like, and I was like, I'm not engaging. I'm not going to, just like you were saying, Jen, there are times you're just like, I'm shutting it down.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm not, I love what Kisma, my mentor, says. She's like, this is not how we do things.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wrote that one down. I have used it. Oh my gosh. Now I'm just like, listen, this is not how we do things now.
But you know what, Jen? research has shown that stress in your body can create stress in those cells, and they can
Oh
divide,
yeah.
formulate in certain ways. So when I say I'm not having it, or I'm not doing that now, or that's not how we do this, I mean it. Like I'm intentional about that, because
Right.
I don't want that anymore.
But it's, and you know what I love about this this share is that you voiced it. How many times have we been in situations where we didn't want to rock the boat, or we you were like, oh dang, I'm walking on eggshells, and all that pent up frustration is just stuck inside you, and it is affecting you in an energetic and physiological way.
Yeah.
You know, even oh, this was I went through this, and I was a little worried how CJ was going to turn out. But when I was pregnant, I was going through a very, very volatile, tumultuous situation with his dad, and I was stressed. And unfortunately, when you're pregnant, the baby absorbs all that.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah, so that was something I was like, oh man, I hope I did not create any long-term problems. But thankfully, like, I can coach him through things. But even from on a cellular level, that transfers
Yes.
to the womb and everything else. But it is so true. But when you voice your opinion on something, you're standing up for yourself. I love the word that Summer likes to use, that you advocate. You
Oh, yeah.
advocate for yourself, and so
Got it.
that adds to your joy. So speak up, because what's the alternative? You just keep it inside. You don't be honest and open. And of course, there's tactful ways and respectful ways to communicate what you're feeling. And if that person wants to scream and yell, that's their problem. That's their lack of emotional intelligence. But you stay steady and voice what it is that's on your mind, because the more that you hang on to that, it can cause physical ailments.
Oh, yeah.
It leads to disease, because you're
It
at
really
disease.
does.
Yeah.
It does. I want to read Mike's comment. He says,
Yeah.
years ago, I learned and committed myself to, if I can't get joy from a job, I will bring joy to the job. It has served me well over the years. I like that. If I can't get joy from a job, I will bring joy to the job. Yes, I love that. Thank you, Mike, for that. And then Mike also says, one of my favorite quotes, joy makes everything easier. It certainly does. And Chastity says, to quote the lady from the fire, ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh my gosh, it's so true. And there's so many things that when we're talking about coping and creating along with how to embrace the joy of entrepreneurship, we could go over, and we did in our stories and our sharing today, how to prioritize self-care, how to set realistic goals, set those goals. We're getting to our 30-minute mark. And so I will have a nugget, and it's related to goals, but embrace a growth mindset. We went over that too. Create a support network. That's something that we didn't go over, but here we are together. This is a support network, and we can share these stories. We can share ideas. We can share tips. And guess what? That helps with our joy, right? When we have that connection, when we have that community. And this is why I love this show so much, is because it is a community. All right. With all that said, we have come to our 30-minute mark. Jen, what is your nugget?
My nugget is, I want you all to think about something that's happening in your life right now that's probably robbing you of joy, and identify one of the things. You might have 10, but if there's one, think about, is it necessary to keep this in my life? Another question would be, is there anything I could do about it? Some things you can't, but whatever that thing is, identify it, and then ask yourself, how do I minimize this? Or if you can't, how do you eliminate it? And if you can't do that, then how do you minimize it, so that you can move more towards if there's a scale and it's not joy, and then it's all joy, then how do you move to the scale on the side where it's, I'm experiencing more joy? And sometimes it takes us to have the courage to say yes to ourselves and start saying no to things that you've identified in your life that's robbing you of that joy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We are so like,
I swear. We've always been that way. It's so crazy.
Just the Aries thing. So here's the thing. I think it's just our personality types too, Jen. We're just so similar. So I was going to say, look at your stress checklist. If you don't know what that is, look it up online. Look up stress checklists, right? And start identifying what your stresses are currently. Start, from 1 to 10, 1 being your most stressful thing, and start looking at that, but also start putting those things into perspective about what you can do about those things, right? So rather than, like Jen said, keep it here and fester and let those things kind of culminate in a way that doesn't feel good physiologically and in other ways. This is why we get, stomach aches a lot of times. I'm not saying that's all the reasons, right? That's the only reason, but it can cause stomach upset. It can cause headaches. It can cause a lot of different physiological things in you, in your body, in your brain. And so what I'd like you to do is list those stressors. Look at what you can do, prioritize those stressors, and take one thing at a time. And just by listing those things and looking at them and saying, I can manage A, B, and C here. I can take 3 of these things or 1 of these things today, and I can do A, B, and C about this. And then figure out what you can do to minimize that stress or to alleviate that stress. Because I think that's so great when we can start organizing what might be having us feel out of control, right? Because we also choose to be in that space. So this is also a great way of looking at where we choose to be. I know there's some factors, like sometimes we can't help what happens to us. Like, I didn't know I was going to break a foot. I was like, hello, what happened there, right? I'm sitting on my foot. It's not even a fun story. My foot falls asleep. I don't realize it fell asleep. Boom, shakalaka. I fall, break the foot, and boom, right? So
I remember what she told me. I was like, no, she didn't.
yeah, it wasn't a fun story. But I wasn't expecting this. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm still working, and I'm like, okay, another message from the universe.
Right.
So I'm like, take a nap, Summer. So anyway, just look at that stress checklist, prioritize those stress checklists, and see what you can take one of those stressors and see how you can minimize that, take care of it, and really start cultivating that inner joy. With that said, we've covered so much. I want to thank everybody for being here today. This was so great. Thank you, Jen. And are you ready to dance this out?
Yes.
Okay. All right, here we go, folks. Here we go. Let me get this together. All right, everyone have an amazing week. If you have any questions, say that again, Jen.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, everyone. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions for us, if you'd like for us to cover a specific topic that you're really interested in, let us know. We want to hear from you. All right, everyone. See you next week. Take care. Ciao. Bye. Dance it out with us. Woo! Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Bye, everyone.